All right, thank you, Anderson. I'm Chris Cuomo. We have the perfect guest to talk about the big Steve Bannon news. Anthony Scaramucci is here. Welcome to Primetime. All right, thank you for joining us for the CNN special program. We're going to take the next few weeks here at the start of the year to see where things stand on the important issues. And boy, did we pick the right day to start. Anthony Scaramucci, as I said, he's here. We're going to be one-on-one in just a few minutes on a day where it seems everything has changed. Steve Bannon out at Breitbart. And with word of that, it was like a spell was broken. President Trump called for comprehensive immigration reform and a bill of love for dreamers. He held a meeting that was televised with both sides of the aisle. No hate speak, no faux populism. In other words, no Bannon. So this news is going to send both sides into a tizzy. But forget about the spin. What matters is how we got here and how things may change. Facts first. Let's remember why Trump cozied up to Bannon in the first place. Mid-August 2016, Trump picks Bannon to be his campaign manager, chairman. Why? Why did he pick him to be chairman? Because Bannon hated the GOP establishment that was going after Trump, encouraged Trump to be his most bombastic, which Trump liked, and he had a feel for a group of Americans that Trump wanted to connect with, now known as the base. So, Trump wins. That skinny margin reinforces how important the base was. And Trump elevates Bannon to chief strategist with broad powers. But he also empowered a truly toxic mentality. You remember when Bannon said, "Darkness is good. Dick Cheney, Darth Vader, Satan, that's power." In February, Time magazine dubbed Bannon the great manipulator, the story asking, is Steve Bannon the second most powerful man in the world? That, my friends, was the beginning of the end. Trump is not one to share the spotlight. By April, President Trump referred to Bannon simply as, quote, "a guy who works for me." In July, our big guest tonight, Anthony Scaramucci, was hired as White House communications director. Bannon tried to block him. He failed. If there is any question about Anthony's thoughts on Bannon, here's a taste.
I'm not Steve Bannon.
No.
I'm not trying to suck my own. I'm not trying to build my own brand off strength of the president. I'm here to serve the country.
Funny how he does those beeps with his voice. By August, Bannon had become a cancer and was out at the White House. Last month, he backed Roy Moore's Alabama Senate run. He lost there, too. And last week, the final straw. Excerpts from a bombshell book were released, Bannon slamming the president's son, throwing around the word treasonous, saying they're going to crack Don Jr. like an egg on national TV. President Trump renamed him Sloppy Steve. Mega donor Rebecca Mercer cut off Bannon's funding. Today, with the money gone, support thin, he is out at Breitbart. After last week, President Trump had a singular message for all his supporters. It's Bannon or me. Make a choice. Bannon messed with the bull, as they say, and he got the horns. Joining us now to discuss why this happened, why it took this long, what it means, Anthony Scaramucci, former White House communications director.
Okay, Chris,
appreciate you joining us.
Okay, can we start with some facts first?
I just did.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, let's go over the prompt because I think it's important. I don't think he hired him because of what you said related to the base and expounding himself. I think he hired him because he was looking for a slight shift in direction in the strategy, and he had met with the Mercer family at Woody Johnson's house, and I think he hired him because he was also getting Kellyanne Conway, who he was very fond of and thought she did a wonderful job on TV, and the first woman campaign manager, I might add, to win a Republican Party presidency, probably the first woman campaign manager to do that, period. So those are a little bit different from what you said. The second piece that I would slightly disagree with is that the president had his own voice with what you're describing as the base. Mm-hmm. The president was already in touch with that base. That base already helped him win against 17 other candidates in the Republican primary. And so I think one of the issues there is some of the self-importance that was involved look, I didn't describe it appropriately, but I witnessed it. Some of that self-importance that was involved was detaching himself from the president and from his message. So just a little bit of a clarification.
Yeah, very little, actually. It's more of a distinction without a difference. But here's the bigger point.
But I think it's important. I'll tell you why I think it's important. Because if you understand, and I think your viewers want to know this, if they want to understand how the president operates and how the president thinks,
right.
He really did want some level of collegiality. And
why did he bring in someone like Steve Bannon?
Because he was rewarding him and people like Reince Priebus, because the election was won, and he was trying to put a team together and also offer some level of reward.
Right, but if his
goal
was
also throwing an olive branch to Steve after Steve departed from the White House, he sent a very nice tweet about him.
Right, but that changed, right? I mean, everything knows. You get sideways with the president, you get the worst of him. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
The president says he always hires the best people. How do you explain him having Steve Bannon there?
Well, I would say that Steve had a voice. Steve was a good writer. The biggest problem that Steve had, in my opinion, and I said it, and say it perfectly, but he was more focused on Steve. I think that's where he diverged from the president.
What do you think the president had wrong about him?
You can't say Steve's, well, he's not a team player. You can't say that Steve's not a smart guy. You can't say that Steve's not a good writer. You can't say that after Andrew Breitbart's death, he didn't help raise the profile of Breitbart. Not a super profitable place, but certainly had a very high profile in the last election. So I want to be fair to him, but I also want to be accurate, because one of the things that I did a reasonably good job of, starting two companies from scratch, selling them both, is evaluating talent. And so one thing that you can't have, you can't have a super
Steve Bannon
talent.
Was a good hire?
I don't. I obviously said as much. And so I think he was a bad hire, not because he wasn't talented, not because he wasn't smart and quote-unquote strategic. He just didn't want to play inside the sandbox with the other people. He was splitting people between nationalism and globalism. And to really understand the president, there's a nuance to him there as well. He is a globalist by nature. He wants to be part of the world order.
That's not what Bannon wanted, though.
Not what Bannon wanted. But he's for peace. He's for global prosperity. He wants to get along with our allies, and he wants to put a hurt on our adversaries.
But do you understand why that created such confusion that he brought in someone like Steve Bannon, who saw those things as anathema to his own new form of populism and isolationism?
I can't speak for the president, but I think what the president was trying to do is that there was a sleeve of the president's agenda, which is an America First agenda. It's for the middle-class families. It's for what the president would call the forgotten man or woman. It's for lower middle-class standards rising, wages rising. And so there's a sleeve of the president's personality for that. But then there's also a sleeve of the president's personality that someone like General Kelly, General McMaster,
But imagine if there had been no Bannon, to your own theory, that Trump had already figured it out in the primary, so he didn't need Bannon for a connection to the base. I disagree with that. But even if that were true, imagine if there had been no Steve Bannon. Where do you think the president would be today?
Let me push back for 1 second. You disagree with that because why? He had already...
Because I think that Bannon's sell to the president that I understand these people. They come to me through Breitbart. I've been working with them. I've been selling things to them, message-wise. You need me. Worked. He was vulnerable. He was unsure of his team around him. Bannon gave him a confidence. He brought him in. He won. He brought him closer.
I'm going to disagree with that because I was there. I don't think the president saw it that way. That could be your analysis, and maybe a historian will write it that way. But I was there. I didn't see it that way. The way I saw it was that he was looking to freshen up the team. He was looking to make a transition into going into the last part of the election. And after he met with the Mercer family, he got comfort with Steve. He had known Steve for a while. He certainly loved Kellyanne. And so he brought them in to help freshen up and bolster the team.
I get what that incentive might have been, but you just don't pick somebody like Steve Bannon, and you don't couple him with Kellyanne Conway. They couldn't be more different when they come to being political animals. Okay, one of them is a minted professional who knows how to run campaigns. The other one is a propagandist who gives a platform to the alt-right and sells a lot of negativity.
You don't have to
what did you think was going to happen when you brought him in?
You don't have to convince me about the differences and the professional qualities that Kellyanne has versus Steve.
Well, but you put them together. That's why I did.
Oh, I put them together because they were recommended about the same time. I think they were very different reasons by Bob and Rebecca.
Is my point. But hold on, let's get to today. It's important that people know how we got here. Now they do. Thank you for that.
Okay.
How do you feel about Bannon being out at Breitbart?
Well, I don't feel good or bad about it, but I sort of predicted it last week.
You don't feel any sense of satisfaction?
I feel a sense of relief for the president that he can now put this distraction beside him. He doesn't have to deal with it anymore. And he can focus on what he knows his gut instincts are to serve the American people, to do more of what he did today, which is to bring people together. The American people want a symphony coming out of the president. They want him to be the conductor. And they want him to weld the two sides together, find the common ground, and push forward on the DACA agenda, push forward on a health care reform package, push forward on a restructuring of the global order.
I hear you.
That eliminates terrorism and all these other things.
I get it.
So, you know, to me, when you're in business, and look, I've been in politics, I guess, officially for a short period of time. But remember, I was with the president for 18 months.
Yes.
And I was on his executive transition team. So pretty good idea of what's going on.
Right, but the point is this. We see what the president does on a minute-by-minute basis. Certainly, he is not in kumbaya mode. Might that change now? Maybe. As I said, it seemed like a spell was broken with this news of Bannon.
See, again,
but I got to tell you, Anthony, I'm not buying this.
I take issue with that, though, too.
Well, hold on a second. Take issue with less things for a moment.
He didn't break us. There was no spell being broken.
Well, here's why I say that. So you had somebody who only talked about immigration in terms of keeping people out. Very anti-immigrant. Then all of a sudden today he has this meeting. He says, I'll sign whatever you can pass. I want a bill of love for the dreamers. We need to all work together. The wall could mean lots of different things. After he insisted that that was not what he meant, he would never afford any type of mitigation of the wall.
Let's talk
Whether it is the right move or not, principles matter. He distinguished himself from the field by saying, when I say wall, I mean a big new wall of China across the southern border. These guys don't. He got points for that. Now he's backing off it. Might be the right move, but he's got to own it.
Okay, but let's talk as Americans, not as partisans. I think the silent majority in the United States stands for an end of the political divisiveness in Washington. The silent majority, I think, stands for let's knit together a proposal. The great Ronald Reagan once said, I'm going for 80%. The way the Constitution was designed and the checks and balances in the system are designed, I'm not going to get 100%. One of the issues I had with Steve, he was going for 115%. It was his way or the highway. The president is naturally...
Steve Bannon was trying to start a culture war, and the president brought him as close to him as he could. Luck smiled on him, and he wound up getting separated from him.
Disagree. The president has great instincts. The president was smelling.
Great. How do you have great instincts and bring Steve Bannon as close to him as he did?
Like I said, he was rewarding him for
whatever
electoral victory.
But he was rewarding the wrong person by all objective criteria.
You know, I have to say this to you guys. You don't want to give the president credit for a lot of things.
Why would I give the president credit for bringing Steve Bannon in close to the seat of power?
Well,
you tell me, Anthony Scaramucci, who is no friend to Steve Bannon, why was he a good choice to have with a lot of power in American government?
We're now looking at this with hindsight and saying that it was a bad choice, and the president would now say it was a bad choice. But here's the hallmark of a great president and a great executive. When you've made a bad choice and you have to make a decision to get rid of somebody that's been a bad choice, you remove the person from the situation. And so he did do that. You want to say that 7 months was forever in the administration. He said it to me a couple mornings ago. I don't see it that way. There were a couple of bad actors inside the administration that were leaking on the president. They were serving themselves. There are other people that are
more proof that he doesn't have the best people around him.
I don't agree with that. I think he has a very sound, very good team.
How can you have it both ways, though, Anthony? If he has the best people around him, why does he keep shedding people like fleas off a dog?
Have you run a company before?
No.
Okay, so let me tell you how it works when you run a company. Whether you like it or not, the 40 or 50... Okay, well, it's an organization. Have you run a political organization like that before?
This isn't a company. This is different. Don't you see that the inefficiency going on in this?
You don't want to let me make my point.
No, but I mean, you have to have competing points here.
Listen, I've been the CEO of 2 startup companies. When you were running...
What did you learn when you went to Washington, D.C.?
I learned they're treacherous people.
It was a different set of rules,
very, very dishonest people.
Because you never met dishonest people in business?
No, they're different. They're different. People on Wall Street or more... in your face, they tell you exactly how you feel. You may not like what they're saying to you, but they tell you exactly how you feel. In Washington,
the point is they're different
they do the howdy-doody wave to you, okay? And then they try to shiv you in the back.
We're making the same point.
That's why the American people dislike them. The American people see the people in Washington for what they are, and that's why the president became the president. They don't like that.
And that's why the challenge of leadership is to make it better. And with Bannon around him, he was on a different course. We'll see what happens now.
He's making it better. You guys don't like the fact. All of a sudden,
no, that's not fair. Don't be unfair. First night of the show, don't be unfair.
I'm not going to be unfair, but we should.
Why would we not like unity?
We should. Well, okay, but you want to go back to rhetoric that was campaign oriented, rhetoric that could have been driven by Steve Bannon, and you don't want to go to the practical reality of being president and seeing a guy today for 45 minutes in an actual bipartisan discourse looking to get a deal done. And when he talks about love, well, you know what about the guy, whether you guys like it or not, he's actually
Why do you keep saying that?
He's a very compassionate
guy. There is no we. There's only me. You're talking to me.
Okay, so
when he says ugly things, I criticize him for saying ugly things. That does not mean that I don't like when he says good things.
When he says he wants a bill of love, are you going to praise him for that?
I will.
He wants a bill of love. Does he get praised for that?
I think that if he does something that helps the dreamers, because supposedly there's consensus that these are not the people to villainize, even if you want to go on a campaign of getting people out of this country, this is not where to start. So if he is to construct some type of compromise.
So take him at his word.
We will see. As I said, a spell was broken. He was so different today. Okay, there's a fundamental distinction that you're ignoring. Hold on a second. Let me set the table for you.
Spell broken on President Trump.
He was saying totally different things. Bannon is out, and now, whether coincidence or not, he's saying very different things. You're saying it's because he wants to get a deal done.
Democratic leadership to cut a deal on the budget. To raise the ceiling. He met with Democratic leadership early on to discuss DACA.
This is different.
It is different because it should be refreshing.
Hold on a second.
The fact that he's going to Davos should also be refreshing.
Hold on a second. One step at a time, Anthony. There's a difference between a position and a principle, okay? The wall was a principle. I want people out. We are not a nation because we don't have borders, which of course was always untrue. It was always untrue that we didn't have a border, and it was always untrue that the wall was a silver bullet. And in fact, there is decent reporting to suggest that Bannon and then candidate Trump knew that, but they knew that it was a very saleable item to a base that is still waiting for that wall. However, now
we see it differently.
Okay, fine, but now he walks into this room to make a deal, as you say, and that changes. Something that he said was irrevocable and unchangeable. When they say metaphor for wall, some sensors, some fence, whatever the border experts say we need, not me. I'm different than them. And people believed him. Now you're saying, well, he wants to make a deal. No. Principle stays. Positions can change. So, if he has found new religion on what a wall is...
Keep talking,
but
hopefully give me a chance to rebuttal all this.
Listen, you are a lot of things. Quiet is not one of them.
Okay.
Today,
neither are you.
He goes in there. Oh, that's my job. Today, he goes in there and he says, look, the wall, we'll see what it means. It's fine. You bring me something, I'll sign it. Very different. That's good.
This is what I love about our society.
Because he's trying to make a deal.
Now. You know, Scott Adams brought up in Win Bigly, which is actually a very funny book and worth reading, that people in our society have different realities. Okay, so we both saw the same thing. I watched the full 45 minutes. I saw something totally different than what you saw. I saw a guy that principle, we're going to put a wall up to protect our society, to get
we don't know what that means anymore.
Let me just finish. Legitimate and legal immigration. Milton Friedman once said, if you're going to have a welfare state, you have to have a strong border, because if you don't have a strong border, there's an economic incentive for people to move across your border into your welfare state. The United States, thankfully, does have a welfare position in the society where we provide a safety net for indigent people, and I believe that we should have that. Paul Ryan believes that, so does the president. But you then have to protect the people that are living inside the United States legally, so that you can protect the tax system, you can protect the services and the benefits. One of the things that the president believes, and he said, and he referenced it today, that border officials, DHS people believe that there has to be a wall in certain areas.
That's what's always been said. He's new to this. That's always been the position of border experts. That's all I'm saying.
He's really not new to it.
It's new. Well, then he's been saying something he didn't believe for a long time.
When John Kennedy was telling people in 1960 that there was a missile gap, and he campaigned hard on a missile gap. And Ike was upset with him. President Eisenhower was upset with him over it. And when he got to the office and he was in the Situation Room and he saw the missiles and he realized that we were in a missile surplus, not a missile gap.
So he was wrong. Is that something to be rewarded? Is that a model for leadership?
No. You're missing the point. It's not necessarily that he was wrong. It's just that when you're coming at something as a candidate, and you have less information than you do as a president, smart people, people that are geniuses, smart people, they change their position and they alter themselves. And so every politician has to do that.
Wrong.
But hold on a second. President Obama, okay, and I'm with him on this. I'm pro-gay marriage, as you know. I'm for all of the social progressive
That's not
things.
about facts.
But it is
about facts.
He was against
He didn't
gay
learn
marriage.
any new facts.
No,
He changed his mind. He changed his opinion.
He changed his
said
mind.
that he grew in his perspective.
Okay.
That's not about how many missiles you have.
No,
That's not about whether or not a wall is what's needed by experts.
You don't want to give the president any credit.
No, it's not true. I just want to be honest about how he arrived at this new position.
Changed his position. The president's got new information.
It's not a good analogy that you offered up for it. But let me ask you something else while I have here. Two quick things.
Good news is your viewers are listening to me and they say, all right, that's a pretty good analogy. That's what they're saying.
And it's a pretty good conversation, and I appreciate you for it. Two more quick things. One, do you think DACA deserves a clean bill, nothing attached to it? Do that, get it done, and then move on to these other things.
Good question. So my initial knee-jerk reaction to that is yes. Like my
do you think the president is that sharing the president's thoughts or just your own?
I honestly haven't talked to the president about it, so I can't. Speak
no, because that's what I
know how Washington works. Okay, they're going to nail him with other stuff in that bill because that's how they work. Okay,
but they is his people in this one. They is his people. The Democrats want a clean bill on DACA.
I think if
we heard it today from Feinstein.
We're having a spirit of honesty here, okay, I think we know that the way the system works is failing the American people. And I would indict both sides of that. So we would like a clean bill. You're not going to get a clean bill because of the way the rules work. But the good news about President Trump, and this is the hope for the American people, that you finally got somebody in there that's going to disrupt the rules. Well, and maybe we'll change the rules for the better
if it's going
to serve the American people as opposed to these nonsensical politicians and their lobbyists and special interests.
If it's going to be a bill,
that you got to give the president credit for.
Well, let's see what he does. If it is a bill of love, as he promised today, the latest promise, then it should be, by definition, a clean bill. One other thing for you.
Oh, I hope it will be.
Well, we'll see. That's if it's a bill of love, then it is. Again, it's what he says, what he does.
Don't use the word love too much on television. You'll get criticized.
I'm all about love. We need more of it. Can't have enough of it.
I said at my press conference, I love the guy 3 or 4 times.
But I believe me. I remember what you said.
I'm just trying to give you.
I'm using it in a different way than you did.
Give me some media training here on your first day on the
national anthem.
Yeah, go ahead.
The president says we should respect it. You should stand for it. You should honor it. Let me play you a piece of tape.
It should be a bill of love.
Trying to confuse you as much as possible. So
I don't know
the president's at the national. He's there for the national anthem. He's at the big Alabama-Georgia game. Right?
Yeah, got it.
National anthem is before it. Do you think that the president of the United States knows all the words to the national anthem?
1,000%.
Absolutely.
1,000%.
No
you were trying to show on there, which didn't show, that it looked like he wasn't saying the words or something like that.
So here's my real question. I wanted to get that out of the way. You say he knows the words. I
got to tell you something. Okay, I know a lot of the Maroon 5 songs. I don't know all of them. I'm sure.
I don't know why you want to admit that.
I'm sure if you told me right now at 9:22 p.m. say every word in the national anthem, probably going to get a few of them wrong.
Oh, come on. Anyway, let me ask you this, though. Should the president have sung
But I'd like to see you sing the national anthem right here.
Another day, maybe in a high school basketball.
You sing the national anthem right now, I'll mouth it alongside of you. How's that? Want to do that?
Listen, and then you'll be ready to be president. Let me ask you this. Should the president sing the national anthem if he wants it to be respected as profoundly as he says he does?
See, I mean, again, this is
just a question.
But it's just not a question that I feel comfortable answering because you want me to get inside the mind of the president.
No, I'm just saying in general, the president of the United States, if the anthem matters so much, should he sing it?
My attitude on the anthem is I have an unconditional love for the country.
Right.
And I would suggest to everybody that has a social justice issue with the country, have an unconditional love for the country, walk Walter Reed Hospital, stand for the anthem. Let's address these social justice issues or whatever the grievances may be in another form. Don't hit the flag.
Look,
that would be my personal bias on the situation.
That's okay.
That's my personal
And here's the beautiful thing, Anthony
I stand for the
Scaramucci.
flag.
You are entitled.
Let me tell you, I've seen people that have no legs stand for the flag, and that's good for me. And I will stand alongside of them all day and night. And I tell my friends that have a peace and social justice issue with the United States, let's drop it with the flag. This has been a phenomenal experiment, the 240 years. We are progressing. We are making the place better.
I take your opinion.
Let's stand for the flag.
I take your opinion. The beautiful thing is you can have your opinion, and other people can have a different opinion, and they shouldn't be attacked either.
But you know the difference? my opinion is right, Chris, and yours is wrong.
Yeah. Anthony Scaramucci, thank you for being with us. I appreciate your perspective.
Good luck with the new show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I bet you have a lot to say about that interview. You want to know what the good news is? The show is more interactive than most. Tweet me your thoughts at Chris Cuomo. Use the hashtag Cuomo Primetime. I may respond during the show, and we're going to read some of your pearls of wisdom at the end. Up next, from build the wall to where's the love? We now know where the two sides stand on DACA and hundreds of thousands of dreamers. Who should win? The great debate. Jennifer Granholm, Rick Santorum, next.